your grades are the brave who fight for you. If you don't gain, they fight in vain. Show them what you can do. Welcome once again to Wave Your Grades on KUAW.org, emanating from the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center. My name is Carl Boyd, your host on Saturdays from 1 until 2 p.m. Wave Your Grades is a program that is dedicated to veterans primarily, but veterans and active duty troops, and motivating to students who are striving for excellence in honor of our troops. I am your civilian host and get an opportunity to allow our viewers, listeners, to hear from the brightest and the best. Those of you who are regulars on Wave Your Grades know that usually the first Saturday of the month features the Smart Club, sponsored by Attorney Valencia Broadus. Not feeling the best last week, but feeling wonderful this week. So the Smart Club's program is the second Saturday of May today. And let me welcome, please, Attorney Valencia Broadus. Hello to you. Thank you for being here.
Amen. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you all know, it is Mental Health Month. I'm just going to stop there, and then Mr. Boyd can do the rest of his introductions.
Okay, then, well, let me do this because this is extremely important to me. Interesting that you mentioned mental health, because from a physical health perspective, would like to solicit your prayers for my brother-in-law, my wife's twin brother, who suffered a stroke last night. As a matter of fact, I think he was at the Blue Room when this happened, celebrating the weekend. And accompanying that also has COVID-19. And my wife is on the phone now this afternoon with the rest of the family, and I can tell from her conversation with them that things are going well. He is getting better. It is a blessing, but we admonish all of those who are with us to take seriously COVID-19. And by the way, whatever you might be suffering from, I compliment Attorney Valencia Broadus. I appreciate that you do indeed take care of yourself, the many challenges that you have faced, and for your being with us with a smiling face this afternoon is greatly appreciated. And on today's program, in as much as we do celebrate educators, we celebrate veterans, and we highlight outstanding young students, we are always happy when we can talk to those who encourage students, who motivate students, who teach students, who tutor students, who mentor students. We have such a one with us this afternoon in the name of Braylon Page. I'm certainly going to allow, if you will, Valencia Broadus to make a more formal introduction. But before we came on the air, Braylon Page reminded us of the McClinton celebration when we were at Arrowhead. And Curtis McClinton, not only a former professional football player, but one of the founders of the Black Economic Union. And I'm going to impose, I am going to request that Braylon Page remind us of her presentation at the McClinton celebration. And you talk about a young person being impressive. Let me turn it over first. Attorney Valencia Broadus, go right ahead, please.
Miss Braylon, she's amazing. Y'all, she's a science lady. She'll tell you a little bit more about that if she'd like to. But really just want to just tell her thank you, not just for being here with us today, but for as our first McClinton Fellow of the Curtis R. McClinton Jr. Leadership Academy. She has done some amazing things on not just with herself, developing herself as a leader, but in helping us to talk to our young people since November about different topics. but she's just been there weekly, and they love Miss Braylon. Mr. Coleman and I, others, we'd be there, doing, because we each would take a day to teach, and is Miss Braylon coming? They want to see Miss Braylon. And I'm like, her day's not today. Oh, okay. And they like us too, but they love Miss Braylon because she has, she really imparts in them some of that everyday relativity stuff that really a young lady, professional her age, can do better than we can. And so I appreciate that she does it with a smile. I mean, they love her. She prepares, she studies. She's an educator, and so she's a scientist first, I know that, but she's also an educator, and we watched her do it with these young people, and it's really amazing. And as as the founder director of the Leadership Academy, I'm excited to have Miss Braylon as our first fellow because he exemplifies was that Mr. McClinton was really, about himself. And then from there, us taking that time to do a little bit more of through the BEU and Leadership Academy to make that happen. So with that, she can tell you all about herself and what she's doing, because she's doing some awesome things. And we'll dive in and out because she doesn't brag on herself much at all. And so that's why I'm really glad she's on here so we can do that. So, okay, I'll stop there.
Oh, wow. Thank you all so much. This is great. This is my first time being on the show. So thank you all first and foremost.
We thank you. We thank you.
This has been great. I'm not native to Kansas City. So coming in, I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. And I've been able, through networking and fellowshipping with you all and through the Black Economic Union, I've really been able to find my community here in Kansas City. And that has been one of the greatest experiences outside of anything academic or education-wise that I can receive from the city. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I can add to my experience being here in the city. And I'm just nothing but grateful. So thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. B. She's given me an opportunity by being first recipient of the Health Equity Fellowship through the BEU that I can't explain. And it's gone, I think, far and further than even what I imagined that this opportunity could be. So I am so grateful to you, Ms. B, for continuing to shed blessings on me and opportunities that I, as a young person, can then pass on to the next generation, because I think that's what it's all about. If you have knowledge and you know something works, it's nothing to just pass it on and make sure that the next generation are able to thrive and then go beyond and furthermore. Because I think what it's about is you all teach us, we gain it, try to make it better, and then we can pass it on and the next people can make it even better than what we've done. So thank you so much.
You're awesome. Now I'll just share, and she may have a comment after this. Of course, she's a graduate of KU. And so, as you all know, Mr. McClinton graduated from KU. So the KU connection has just been so awesome in regards to the Chris R. McClinton Jr. Leadership Academy, just because of, we know he was a Chiefs here and it was in Missouri, but the Chiefs belonged to Missouri and Kansas, I think, really both in the whole metro area. But I'm coming from him starting, football there. He has an actual in the library and archives there of all his history. So that KU connection has been just amazing. And Mr. McClinton, not only, of course, was he he played football, he also was an educator. And he was a financer, he was money and banking. And so there's so many things that as we do them, we're trying to make sure we're doing them in the spirit of who's Mr. McClinton? What would he want us to pour in? What would he want us to share with these other young people? And as we pass the baton, which Mr. Boyd will probably share more about the passing the baton and things that he's doing there. With that, you see how I did that? That was good.
Thank you.
That's funny. But I want to really just make sure that we're knowing that, these young leaders like Miss Braylon, they're educated, they're here, but they want to pour back in the community, and they're letting us pour into them. We've had many conversations over the years, me being here for 25 years in Kansas City, of young people Braylon's age. They don't want us to help them. And then the young leaders her age will say, well, y'all won't teach us nothing. So that's been a battle, and probably in our minds though, because once we do some intentionality and just lay the platform there and say, this is what it's for, about to happen, it's happening. And with Braylon and others here too. And that's pretty interesting for us because we want to pour in. We want to do it so badly. Sometimes it would frustrate us. Why won't they let me help them? Because we probably trying too hard. So I've learned, hopefully, Ms. Braylon, hopefully I've learned to not press so hard. You know what I mean? Sometimes just kind of, if I want something, I don't try to make it, or, you know what I mean? Just if that makes any sense,
Oh yes, definitely. I think it's for people my age, we're stuck in this sort of awkward transition where we're still in our adolescent mind a little bit, but we're trying to transition into adulthood. And I think once you're in that transition, that's sort of that awkward period where we don't want to be told what to do, but we also need guidance sometimes. And so it's like, how do we navigate sort of these awkward spaces, but still maintain our individuality and independence so that we feel secure as we move on into real adulthood, if you will. So, but I think you've done a great job, Ms. Lee. I don't have.
Oh, thank you.
Please, Braylon Page, remind us of your role at the McClinton celebration at Arrowhead.
Oh, yes. So I was in charge of basically reminding us of some of the qualities and characteristics that Mr. McClinton followed and exhibited as a founder and really an activist for his community. And so I was able to present some qualities that we came together as a group to sort of characterize who he is. And we named it in an acronym called finances. This being because, of course, the BEU is all about economic growth and community development. And we found that Mr. McClinton really exhibited these qualities. If you break down the letters of finance, these include he was able to finesse in a smooth way. He was innovative. He was noble, adaptable. He is able to conform to whatever obstacles may come in his way. Neighborly as well. He is fellowship and made connections with people that may not on the usual have interaction. He was also courageous. Some of these, in the times where the BEU was getting started, a lot of these ideas and dreams that he had for Kansas City, to my studying and research, people thought he was crazy. Like, what do you mean? Like, this can't happen. And so he possessed all of these qualities, and finally it was effortlessly. He was able to find a way to bring it all together and made it look smooth, and it came together despite what may be happening behind the scenes. Mr. McClinton really showed us a model way of bringing community together and growing his community.
Sister Valencia, if you will allow me, I know you want to respond.
I don't. You go ahead.
Let me tell you, and I say this in behalf of both Brother Walker and myself because of our generation being more closely associated with Curtis McClinton's generation as it relates to chronological age. When we hear someone who is as young and as thoughtful as Braylon Page being able to capture the personality, but the quality of personality of someone in our age group, it gratifies us because when Braylon Page makes that presentation, when she says that, it is not out of look at me. It is look at him through the eyes of someone generations apart who appreciates what he brought to the table, and beyond just the table, what he brought to the community. It is immensely gratifying to see someone, Braylon Page, your age, be able to capture that in the way that you did, as succinctly and yet as thoroughly. So we thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep on keeping on. I'll turn it back over to Attorney Valencia Brothers.
We will. Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
You're
I'm gonna give
welcome.
it back to you in this way. We
Okay.
will, of course, be doing, of course, our second annual event, and that's right now scheduled for June, and we're gonna just make sure giving the same awards and stuff, but different people, stuff like that. So as we are gonna basically do another pass the baton ceremony, would love to this year, Mr. Boyd, as you MC with us and all that other stuff, so I put that in there. So and would love to have a pass the baton ceremony there, because we have a person, and I won't say the name on the radio today, who's going to be getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. And there's a piece of that I think it's really going to be awesome to do a baton passing ceremony with that person. And so, wow. And if you can, Miss Braylon doesn't know about that ceremony, so even if you would share a little bit about it with her, so she would even know what I'm thinking, because
let me indicate to you, by the way, and your memory is so good, and I will see if you might recall that it was actually in 2013 when we did the first Pass the Baton ceremony. It was at Central Christian Church, where the pastor is Pastor Antoine Lee. Yes. And Alvin Brooks actually passed the baton to two people, and that when he was passing the baton to Jermaine Reed and Melissa Robinson. And that same year during Kwanzaa, as we celebrated Kwanzaa, Dr. Shirley Ballard passed the baton to Dr. Kevin Ballard, and they were administrators at what was then the Black Studies program at Southeast. So that the tradition suggests this, that there is a baton passer, there is a baton recipient. That's well and good. But during the ceremony, we also ask that those who are with us, the guests, the audience, also recite a part of what passing the baton is all about. And let me make attribution as it relates to a quote through Leon Dixon. When he and I were talking about passing the baton, he indicated that in the 1960s at Texas Southern University, they had a track coach whose name is Stan Wright. And Coach Wright was being complimented because he was able to recruit athletes who were Olympic fast. I mean, when they came to him and they were talking about his 4x100 relay team, they wanted to know, where do you get these fast athletes? And Coach Stan Wright at the time is quoted as having said, it's not how fast they run, but how they pass the baton. Mm-hmm. So that 4x100 relay team was all the more efficient because they knew how to pass the baton. Just perhaps from an Afrocentric perspective, we might be more efficient if we know how to pass the baton. Now, once again, your youth, Attorney Valencia, brought us to have someone who receives that concept and takes it seriously and runs with it in the way that you continue to do. Wow, that is magnificent. And by the way, when I talked about those passing the baton ceremonies and others who have been engaged to pass the baton, that does not restrict how it is done when you take it, when you mold it, when it fits the purposes for which you have this ceremony coming up. So I just thank you for allowing it to have a little to do with what we were doing in 2013 and are now doing very soon for KCPBS TV.
Amen. It's exciting because one of the things I really enjoyed learning about the baton passing ceremony was that um, as a future elder, and I say that because I'm in the middle, as a future elder, sometimes I think our elders think that if I give you the baton, then I'm going to the pasture. And that's really not what it's about at all.
Right.
And so that goes back to sometimes why it's, as we think about, whatever we think we're doing as elders, if we're not ready to stop or, I got more to do, sometimes we won't do the pouring in. You see, so the
Yeah.
more I learned about, the ceremony and how I thought you were going to say there's no restriction on the pastor of the baton on continuing to work because
Exactly.
you're
Exactly.
right. And so that's what's beautiful about it, because there's the symbolism of whether it's me or younger people saying, okay, here, I'm giving you all that I have. I'm gonna keep running too. I'm gonna keep running with you,
Yeah.
beside you. I'm here to give you all I got, but I do need you to go the next leg because I'm not as strong or as quick as you. Here, I started here, you take it, you take it. And that's the beauty, just like the track,
And if you look at the symbolism of passing the baton, it is not how fast you run, but how fast you pass the baton. Think about it this way. When one is in a relay and they pass the baton, they don't stop running. That would be a very peculiar race
right.
if the person
Yes,
passing the
that's right.
baton
I'm
slid to
sorry.
a halt. No,
I
you
had this
got
visual, like, yes, right.
you got to keep on running. It's just that you don't run quite as fast, maybe not as far, but you've got to be at a very significant pace to be able to keep the lead while you're passing the baton.
That's right.
So Valencia brought us, I thank you for bringing that out. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Because that's what we want really our elders to remember in these
Yes.
ceremonies, is that we're not
Right.
trying to take anything away, because then that makes everybody a little more vulnerable about passing it and passing the knowledge. And especially when we have I think of, well, I've never been in a tribal Africa, nothing like that, but when I read about it, you think about it, it's everyone understands the elders have the wisdom and all of that, but and they're trying to make sure that they're equipping everybody for the fight. It didn't have to be a physical fight. The fight could be just to, build kingdoms or build schools, whatever the fight are, the missions are. And that there's this deep level of respect and reverence and reference
Yes.
that happens in African countries that we don't get as much here in America. And sometimes it's no one's fault. It's culturally, sometimes we don't have the formula yet to make that normal. And I think, again, the baton passing, it does a lot of that for me. It's
Praise
saying,
God.
here's our,
Yes.
here's our new normality. It ain't
Absolutely.
brand new because it used to be that way, and this is gonna sound crazy, but even when we were slaves, when you think about back then, there used to be elders and things would happen because we had to rely on each other. We had to rely on each other for safety and making sure that we were doing social capital and helping each other to either be comfortable bonding wise or opportunities. The more that we got away from relying on each other, meaning, and I do mean Black people, I mean
Yes,
relying
absolutely.
on each other,
Absolutely.
then it's kind of like, well, hey, I mean, I can go over here. I can go over here. I don't need to rely on you. I'm good. And I always told my daughter, because my grandson, Alante, when he played basketball, he mainly played for white, really high up white teams and
Yes.
all that, in trying to get to the NBA and all that, which is fine. But I reminded her, and I remind a lot of parents about this fact: whatever table our children eat from often, that's who they're going to be most loyal to. And we can't forget that, because if we don't prepare tables where we can also help them to get to the MBA or be a doctor or do finances, then we're leaving them no choice but to go to other people to get fed.
Yeah.
And for anybody, when you start liking the food and loving the food, you keep going back to that table.
My goodness.
It ain't no shame. I mean, it ain't like they don't dislike us or nothing like that. But you think about why do our young people, they go away to majority schools or whatever, they don't come back because they get used to not being with their kind, which it's not a problem, but they also get used to being with others all the time. So then it becomes kind of foreign.
Let's hear from
sorry.
Braylon Page. That is so
I know, sorry about that.
Oh, not at all. Please go ahead, Braylon Page.
Oh, yes. No, I totally agree with you, Ms.
Yes.
That is kind of a scary reality that we may have to face, is that we are forced to, or not forced, but we have sort of made the decision for ourselves that we would rather, if someone is supplying us with something that we find useful, we would rather or be loyal to them rather than our own kind sometimes. And I think I can attest to that as well, being a young person aspiring to be a medical physician someday. I remember going to visit HBCU medical schools, and being a graduate of KU, I've sort of got spoiled, if you will, to the luxuries of the science and technology and things that KU has been able to provide, that when I went to visit the HBCU schools, I realized that they don't have sort of the same privileges, if you will, due to funding and, other outside factors that aren't necessarily their fault. But I found myself being a little judgmental of that. Like, would I want to embark on an education where I don't maybe I'll be almost downgrading, if you will, but I would have my community. And that's something that I've been going back and forth with, but it all goes back to your point, Ms. V, is that if someone else has food for you that you're supplying and you're liking the food, you're going to want to stay there. But how can we come back and realize that we can cook food too? It's just about waiting, so.
I am so glad that you mentioned that. And Valencia, I'm so glad that you took us in this direction. And I'll tell you why. When Braylon Page mentioned Indianapolis, Indiana, I thought of Dr. Jim Comer. And I think are you familiar with Dr. Comer?
Oh, yes, sir. He's a big deal.
Wow,
yes,
that's
sir.
outstanding. In May of 1978, we were at a conference at Howard University. And Dr. Comer was kind enough to me to ask me about a paper that I had written. And it was because Reverend Jesse Jackson had me meet with John Hope Franklin. Can you imagine that? I actually had a meeting with John Hope Franklin. And at the conclusion of the meeting, John Hope Franklin said, Brother Boyd, I really appreciate what you and Rev are doing, because I was directing the Chicago Push for Excellence program. And he said, but I think that it is very important that we teach our children after school. Now, that was John Hope Franklin. When we had the conference later that year at Howard University, Jim Comer was asking me about a paper that I wrote, which is titled In Search of Quality Education at Home, a Black Position in Favor of Neighborhood Schools. And the reason that I wrote that paper in 1978 is because Black children were being stoned. They were even in Boston, Massachusetts, the southwest side of Chicago. There were a number of places where we were attempting to integrate. We wanted to go to the white schools, which we perceived as being better. And in the paper that I wrote, my suggestion was, it is just as much a privilege for you to sit next to me as it is for me to sit next to you. And if we would bolster our own schools in our own communities, making our children's travel to school and back home safe, but not only safe, but encouraging, we could build institutions. And I will say it this way now, Attorney Valencia brought us at our home table, eating our home cooking, because the ingredients depended upon our cultural perspective rather than somebody else. And if this young lady, Braylon Page, has the audacity to call up the name of Jim Comer at her age, my Lord, that even with the restrictions, even with the obstacles, shows you how strong our culture is.
Yes.
And my Lord, we need to pass that on. Just thank you. Thank you, my Lord. Please go right ahead, Attorney.
Was going to HBCU, I'm gonna throw this in and we'll talk about it together, please. That one of the best things that happened regarding HBCUs, in my opinion, meaning this year, was Deion. Well, I guess last year. Well, Deion Sanders. When he went and he became the coach for HBCU, and basically demanded, individuals, all teams, NFL teams, to come to the combine. And if his combine he did for all the schools, some didn't come, which was fine. But through Deion Sanders, and we all know who he is. He went to a majority school, played, but then he's like, I'm going to HBCU. My kid's going to HBCU. He pulling the number one picks of his HBCU. So again, standing up. I know who I am. I'm Deion. Y'all gonna come to me. And again, using that position of his influence and power to bring a light to HBCUs. And now the Chiefs, we have an HBCU that we picked for our team. I mean, HBCU graduate. So
Thank
just
you.
watching it, but someone has to, we have to do it. Other people can't make people love us if they don't want. I mean, people can say, whether it's civil rights and everything, they can stand beside us, march with us, and he or she is a good, Black person, or whatever happens. I mean, that's good and appreciated. So don't get me wrong, but we have to advocate for ourselves and say how great we are also, because if not, then only through the validity and the endorsement of other people will we advance. And if they choose not to validate or endorse us, then because we allowed other people to carry our water, period, then we won't have any water, and then we got to start over, stuff like that. So that's HBCUs made me think of that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so amazing that he did that. And the world is watching. I mean, well, United States anyway. I don't know about the world, but United States is definitely watching, and all these coaches, because they're like, what? How you can just take our people? The students wanted to come to where Deion Sanders. Oh my God, it was so great. And he just brought light to, you used to pick your athletes from the HBCUs when we were segregated. They would go to our schools, Alabama especially, one of the ones that was probably one of the most racist. They would go to our schools and just pluck us out to their teams. They didn't give the schools credit. They would just take us, offer us money or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then once we could integrate, they stopped going to the HBCUs to find us, because it's like, we don't need y'all no more. That's what happened. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely exciting. I am interested, Braylon Page, as we look at who you are today, and even as young as you are, your beginnings, your path in this direction. How did it take this turn? Or was it necessarily a turn? How did you stay on this path as it is? And I'm talking about back to 6th grade or something. There might have been someone or something that encouraged you. How is it that you have come to where you are and continue to focus on where you're going?
Yes, that's thank you for asking about that.
You're welcome.
So my mother, I grew up just 2 minutes down the street from St. Vincent Ascension Hospital, Indianapolis. And my mother, she's worked there for over 30 years now in the recovery room. So post surgery, she's worked in that department for as long as I can remember. And so she was I would say, first introduction to science and medicine. And I remember she always wanted to become an RN. She studied and she really wanted to advance her education. But she always found it difficult with standardized tests and these sort of midway milestones that you sort of had to cross. And having 3 children of her own and just trying to maintain other things as a Black woman, she just wasn't able to do that. And I think from a young age, I sort of ingrained in myself that I would at least try and go beyond and make something to show my mother that someone in our family is capable and willing if they have the right resources and time. And so, yeah, science was sort of my introduction to that. I remember she forgot her lunch at home or something, and I would have to go take it to her. And going in the hospital, I'd be able to talk with doctors for a few minutes or some nurses that she worked with. And over time, that I was able to develop relationships, and they become like your hospital aunties and uncles. Like people are looking out for you and wanting to know what you're doing with life. And I carried that on throughout school. And I ended up at KU, not because I found out later KU actually is a great school for science and research, but I initially just thought, well, I'm grown now, I'm independent, I want to go see what it's like living on my own. Let's try a new city out, like very daredevilish, impulsive, if you will, decisions. And I found myself struggling when I first moved here because I was sort of like a fish out of water, having to, for the first time, actually find community and things for myself, when as before it was sort of given to me. I didn't have to very much so work for it. And I think that is something Black students face often, especially when we go to PETA or majority white institutions. We're forced to find ourselves in this time. But it really just takes, if you can find one friend or one professor or a TA or anyone that can really be that person for you and say, I understand what you're going through, and I'll help you along. And I was luckily able to find someone along that path, although undergrad was very much so difficult for me. I was able to find a small community, and I found that it was just a trail. Like one person would lead to another introduction, which leads to another. And I eventually came across Miss Valencia Broadus, and she really expanded my opportunities. And so far, I've been able to not only maintain my science as a researcher, but I now can evolve that into the community and pass on my knowledge. And it's really a two-way relationship, I think. Like, as much as I think I'm pouring out or giving and educating younger people, they really are helping me in the same way and building my character. And resilience, I think, is something.
And patience.
Oh yes, and patience. Absolutely.
Them young people, they funny. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Right.
But yes, it's really been a lot of prayer, and I've been in a lot of seasons where it feels lonely, but you realize that sometimes God positions you in situations where He's testing you to see how you navigate under pressure. And I hope I'm doing Him well by the decisions that I have made thus far.
You're doing well, faithful over a few things, and you're doing them well. I'm gonna ask Ms. Braylon if she will also, though, talk a little bit about the seniors that you're in our community pouring into. Please talk about that a little, because that's been impressive to me also. I mean, very, as you're really, anyway, tell us a little bit. I can talk, y'all. Talk.
Yeah, that's okay. So, we've been living through these COVID times for a few years now, and it seems everyone has solutions for every group of people. If you're 12 and under, you should do this. If you catch COVID, 18 to 25, do this. But we realized that the elders, they were often left out of conversations, even though they are the most vulnerable sometimes. And uh, we really don't want to forget about our elders when it comes to this pandemic and COVID, because they matter. And if we can intervene in any way, even if it's just knowledge, we found out that sometimes it's just you don't know what you don't know until someone tells you. And so I've been privileged enough to work alongside Mr. Jim Nunley. He's the GOAT, I think, the greatest.
He is the GOAT.
He's super great, but he's allowed me to be featured on his show a few times and talk about things that elders can do to maintain their health during these COVID times. And some home testing was something that was a big deal a few months ago, and even still is. And we found that there's really a technology gap. So it seems the world around us is growing within technology. Like, since when can we test ourselves for diseases and things that we may have? So it was really about putting it in plain language. What is really happening here? How do I take this COVID home test? What is going to happen if I do have COVID as an elder? And that further evolved into meeting with the Monday Nighters group of elder men who talk about the Chiefs every Monday night. And they allowed me to come and invade their space and have some pretty vulnerable conversations as elder men and discuss their health and what's really happening, and how can we better facilitate conversations between them and their doctor. And we found that there are a lot of things that older men go through within their lives that sometimes they don't want to talk about. Maybe it's embarrassing, maybe it's just not comfortable to talk about unless they're amongst themselves. But sometimes it is something that they really should have conversations about with their doctor or their loved one, so that we can protect their health as much as we can. So that was a super great experience. Nunley Granddad, he's the greatest, and he's been allowed me to come and share his network of elders and really talk about things to protect them and keep us going, so you all can be here for longer to guide us and protect us.
Let me mention something to you that this is so very interesting. You're mentioning Jim Granddad Nunnally, and you talked about the football and of course his program on diabetes. But some years ago, I was doing a program and asked that he join the program. But the reason was, and you can test this if you would like, I could not find a subject that Jim Nunley was not an expert in. I challenge you, just try something, just make up some stuff. And you will have a significantly lengthy conversation with Jim Nunley about whatever you come up with.
Absolutely.
So I congratulate you on that association. And let me say also, knowing him and your invitation to be in that venue, I appreciate the fact that you realize it really is no small thing, because you just don't invite just anybody to have the nerve to come and change the subject.
Right.
We love our football. We love arguing about it. We love the debates. We love to tell you who's who and what's what on the court, on the football field, on the baseball diamond. And here is this young lady who's going to come in and tell me to appreciate my body and what I need to do with it, not only for me, but for my spouse and others as well. That is a serious, significant compliment to you. So I compliment you, Braylon Page. That's outstanding.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Sister Broadus. I see you.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry. Because the reason I wanted to share that, because it's, as Miss Braylon, she was just saying that she found community. And so whether it's like, here, whether it's like with me or Mr. Coleman or Miss Kathy or other people she's meeting also in the community, we really, really, really appreciate your scientific knowledge. I just want to cry. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. Sometimes you get so emotional. And the reason is that, we have all these kids out here that they want to be, doctors and engineers and lawyers and stuff. But sometimes they don't see us weekly, like they're getting to see you. But also, and I know Mr. Carl Evans used to always say to me, and he and Mr. Nunley, as most people know, were, my two of my mentors for these whole 25 years. And Mr. Evans is now, gone. But Mr. Evans, he would always say to me jokingly, you're a smart lawyer. Why are you sitting down here with these old, people that don't know that much, blah, 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 blah. He was teasing me, but what he was really saying is, he was thanking me for making time every week to just sit up under him and the other elders to listen, because that's what, we're supposed to do. And he's like, you don't have to be here. I'm like, but I need to be here. And same with Mr. Nunn. I mean, I need to be there. And as Mr. Boyd was saying, as you are recognizing that this really is a big deal, because they don't have to let us in their networks, and I just appreciate not just with those seniors, but with our future high school seniors, because they're getting there, because they think it's kind of cool, Ms. Braylon, because you're a beautiful, nerdy person. And so the reason that's important is because for the young ladies, they see you, as this young, beautiful lady, but you're really smart. They think that's kind of cool, and the boys too. But when you think about science and math and all of that, the more they can see, they can see the young people and us too, you're our future generation. And so, we know that you are going to be able to help take care of us. So you're going to be a community doctor. And then it may not be what you want to be, but you want to get paid, okay? You want to get paid for all your work. I don't mean a welfare doctor, meaning, no pay. But as far as community medicine, because you know us and you're taking that time to make sure you know the community and who we are and what we need. And often other doctors, whether they're black or white, doesn't matter the color, sometimes they get the education and they leave us. It happens in many professions. We get our education and then we leave, and we lead a community. And now we're defunct of some more resources that we hope we help to, build and develop, meaning your parents. Let's say your parents. I have my kids and I raise them up to be whatever. Then they leave. And then they go on and enjoy life. And that's cool. But, I want to hang out with me. Anyway, so I'm just so happy. I'm happy that you're here today, because I was telling her I was going to do it. And Ms. Braylon said, I'll be on there too. And I say, like they say, I don't take up too much of your time. Are you sure? Because we don't want to bug you. You know what I mean? And it's like, no.
Fantastic.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
And I would like to just ask, as we look at young people today, and when I measure that against when I was close to that age, I would be interested in finding out whether or not you have found obstacles similar to the obstacles your mother might have faced as it relates to being a female and negotiating the landscape today. What are some of the things that perhaps you've had to overcome?
Oh, absolutely. So, of course, because science is such a dominated field by others who aren't us,
Yes.
I think the obstacles, they're honestly kind of on a daily basis. I think as a woman of color, you have to keep it in your mind consistently of why you are doing this, why you're even entering the field. And that has to be the motivation for working, because when you go into the lab or you go into the hospital, you're working alongside people and sharing conversation with those that don't look like you, don't share any experiences with you. So there's nothing tangible while you're at your workplace to remind you of what you're doing it for, even down to sometimes the people that you are serving sometimes might not look at you and so look like you. And so you're forced to always keep it on the front of your mind for exactly who and why you are doing this. And that is for the community. That is because we currently don't have this system that is constant of pushing out scientists and doctors and researchers. And so we're sort of the first mass group, if you will, of people of color who are actually really trying. And we want to make this what seems like such a scary topic, like seeing science is something that us as Black people, we always run away from, like, oh, that's too hard, or I don't understand what these people are talking about. Like, they're making it seem all these big words. And as Black scientists, we're really forced to work as translators, if you will, between what is happening at the bench or in the hospital side, and how we translate that into plain language to our people to make them understand that this isn't scary. We want to help you. We want you to know these things so that you can pass it on and make not only yourselves, but your family, your community better. And so, yeah, the obstacles are always there, but it's just reminding yourself of what you're doing it for.
This is so wonderful. And by the way, forgive me, I have neglected to ask of Attorney Valencia Broadus, for those who are interested in participating at whatever level, how do they engage those things that you have going on?
So what I want to do, I want to give the Black Economic Union's number as we're going into our next phase with our event and all of that. And that number is 816-474-1080, and it's extension 223. And I'll say it again, 816-474-1080, extension 223. Because as we're going to be doing some more work with students, of course, next year, we're going to be doing a career kitchen piece for young people. We're going to be doing, of course, more financial jeopardies. We're going to be doing more things. So we're interested to let people know what we're doing, and they can go to our website, and it's blackeconomicunion.org. But we're going to be doing so many things that we'll be putting some things out there in the media and all that, just to share what we're doing. And we're helping businesses to get in financial position to get more loans. We're meeting with the SBA regional directors now, one-on-one. We got a lot of things happening, and we just wanted people to know we're here to help. And all of this is under these programs are under the Curtis Harmon Clinton Jr. Leadership Academy. And so just the school piece is just one piece, but there are other things we're doing that we also want to try to help make sure the young people know about it, because we hopefully are developing future community leaders, which means they have to, like Mr. Nunley, they have to know a whole lot of expert stuff about a lot of stuff.
Yes, indeed.
I'll stop there.
Well, I thank you so very, very much, because my prayer is that there are those who will continue to join you, who will continue to follow you, who will continue to avail themselves of the resources that you make available on an ongoing basis. We are coming to the end of this particular hour. Prayerfully, it will not be the last hour that we'll get together.
Yes.
But just want to find out first from Sister Braylon Page, then from Attorney Valencia Broadus, what your closing remarks for today might be. And let me just say, as I ask Braylon Page, that as it relates to chemistry, it is not just what you know, but it is what you have. And it is greatly appreciated. Please close us out from your perspective, if you would.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
again for having me. It's been an honor to be here. I know you are a great legend of Kansas City.
Yes.
You are very nice.
Oh, absolutely. I've learned so much about you through
Praise.
Jim Granddad Dunley and generation rap and
Oh, Lord,
all these
you are
things.
too kind.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So this has
Thank
been
you and thank him.
great. So yes, thank you all so much for having me and even having this platform to expose and bring out young people like myself. This really helps us and continue motivation to keep fighting and being here for our community and following you all's footsteps. So thank you all so much. This has been
Beautiful.
so fun.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Valencia Brothers.
I thank you, Mr. Boyd,
You're welcome.
for preparing a table for us to eat at.
Wow.
And that's the big deal of we have to have places to eat at with each other, conversationally, meaning, mind food or all that. Mr. George Walker, there with KUAW, think about all of the different shows that you have there. It's every show is a table for us to come together and to talk and all of that. And so, as Ms. Braylon was mentioning, she can go to school and do things, but being able to keep in front of her why she is there as a motivation. And often that why will come back to their forefront. All young people dealing with that, if they have a table to come back to often to eat at, then they don't forget. They see you at Sunday or church, or then they go back to school, they see you again. So we have to be intentional about making sure that they come back, invite them back, they come back to our tables and we have good food.
Thank you so very, very much. And as it relates to that cultural perspective and calling upon our history from an Afrocentric perspective, let us remember historically, Brother Walker and I can attest to that as we had family come in town, it did not matter how many or how crowded that table got. You had to come and eat at this table. You are not going to be eating out somewhere or eating at a hotel. You come to this table, and if it's necessary for the table to expand, it will expand. And so it is that Attorney Valencia Broadus is allowing us to expand the table. You will be doing more media-wise as it relates to the young people, so we'll be talking more about that as well.
Ms. Braylon, you hear that? Oh, you're ready. We're excited. I'm very excited.
Let me say now, I thank you so much, Braylon Page. I thank you so much, Attorney Broadus. And each program, Braylon Page, I offer from a book of messages for every morning, honoring veterans and hopefully motivating students. To students across the USA, your Students for Boots message for this day. Today is May 14th. Our armed forces cannot force you to graduate on time, but they're so proud when you do. Our armed forces cannot force you to graduate on time, but they're so proud when you do. Thank you, Ms. Page. Thank you, Attorney Valencia Broadus. Thank you, Brother Louis George Walker. My name is Carl Boyd. Gracious God and wonderful Wanda, I'm on my way home.
Bye, Miss Wanda.
Thank you.
Oh.